Hello, friends. We're live for this week's edition of KCD Office Hours. I was originally planning on not doing office hours today, but because my son's birthday, we're celebrating it today. And yep, there's the video. Yeah, then plans kind of changed in the day, and so decided that I could, in fact, do office hours today. So if you haven't participated in office hours, allow me to fill you in on how this works. So, and let me just paste this here. Sorry, 1 second. Office hours. Okay. Yeah, so it's just once a week. I jump on the Zoom call, normally from 9:30 to 10:30, but plans shifted around a little bit. So it's an hour later today, sorry. Yeah, it's streaming to YouTube. So that's probably where most of you are watching this, available forever. And you can join the Zoom call to ask questions, and that's where I give priority. But if you don't want to join the Zoom call, or you're not available during office hours, then I also have this Discord channel where I will answer questions that get asked between the last time I did office hours, which I think somewhere around here, and now. And so, yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. I'll just go with what we've got here in the Discord channel. And if you join the Zoom and you have a question, feel free to just jump in and ask. I see Justin is here. Hi, Justin. Do you have a question, or are you just hanging out?
Hey, Kent. Mostly hanging out. I think maybe I have a couple questions. Is there anyone else here? Or is it just us?
It's just you so far. You're first, so fire away.
Nice, man. Well, nice to meet you. I've learned a lot from you this week, and exploring Remix and having a really nice time.
Cool, good.
I guess it's more of an architecture question. This week I started this kind of big project for my work. I'm like the sole developer on it, and I'm building like an admin app and working with a data engineer it's going to talk to like a data warehouse and stuff. So in terms of like architecture between like the Remix server and like the Node server, that's actually going to be like my GraphQL API that interfaces with the data warehouse. I've implemented like an auth strategy, but I'm kind of curious to hear how you might go about something like that in terms of keeping like a session persisted, client side within the app, but then also like persisting your session on like the Node server side of things, if that makes sense.
Okay, so typically the first solution to that from the web standpoint is to use cookies. So the session is stored in the cookie. The cookie is serialized by the server, and so and it's an HTTPS only cookie. And so pretty much all the cookie stores is the user ID. Yeah, and so then that will be persisted, and as soon as the request comes in, you can identify who it is and everything. There are alternatives to this, but yeah, that's like the first or the easiest way to do that. Does that not work for your case, or?
No, that's exactly what I'm doing as far as the Remix side goes. I'm kind of followed like what you did with the jokes, in terms of that. But the other caveat is that we use Google Workspace, so the only users that should ever be able to access this are, authorized by Google. So I got Firestore like set up, or Firebase. And then in terms of like talking to the actual API, I set up a session cookie like on the Remix side from Firebase, and I'm actually using that session cookie as an auth header to fire up to my API, and like constantly pinging the like verify session cookie from the Firebase auth like package.
Mm-hmm.
to see if that's good. And I don't know. It's all working. I think I get a little bit of a performance hit because basically on every single request um, that I'm pulling from my API, I'm like pinging Google to say like, hey, is this session like cookie token valid?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like super
I
secure.
can't remember. So I used Firebase when I was first building my website for authentication. And I feel like the verify token doesn't actually go to Firebase.
Oh,
I could be wrong there, but I think that it just verifies that that Firebase client was the one that created the token, rather than saying, okay, let's make sure that this token not only well, let's go to the Firebase to do that check. I could be wrong, and but when I'm like deserializing a cookie, I can do that without having to like talk to any database or anything like that, because I have the session secret that was used to encode that cookie. So I feel like they should be able to do it the same way. But in any case, yeah, if you do end up having to hit the Firebase API every time, then that is unfortunate. But it sounds like you can't really get around that anyway. So just because the way that that things are set up there. So yeah, I think you're probably okay. It maybe could be more optimal, but like maybe not. Like it's without looking more deeply into like the options that you have there,
yeah.
where you can say, hey, like I just want to verify that this user exists on Google, and assert that once, and then thereafter, once you have that cookie. Okay, so let me back up. Let me make sure. So your GraphQL server is not in the same node server as your Remix app. Is that right? Yeah,
That's correct. Yeah, that's
yeah.
the part that's really been I've been working, for like a few weeks now to try to like get the best setup, and I feel like I kind of have it now, but yeah, like I said, I'm the only developer like doing this, so I just don't have anyone to like bounce
Yeah,
ideas
yeah.
off of. So I
Well, that's part
appreciate
of
it.
why what office hours is for. Is so like for
That's
people like,
awesome.
because I've been in your shoes, man. Like I know what it's like to be the only UI dev, and yeah. Um, I wonder if your GraphQL server could be the one responsible for setting the cookie, and your node server could just like not care about authentication at all. Um, and then
The remix node server, you mean?
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, that's like kind of what I have right now. I feel like yeah, I guess I am kind of doing it in both places because I'm like doing the like require session thing like on the remix side where that is also like just checking the session cookie and
Hmm.
then running over to Google, Firebase or whatever to verify that it's good.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I guess that was really confusing to me to figure out how to, like you said, like just rely on the like the Express GraphQL API to do all of my auth. I couldn't really figure out how to do that.
Yeah, I think that so the one architecture that's pretty popular with Remix is to use the Remix server as your backend for your front end.
Yeah.
Where the backend is the piece that actually really cares about the authentication state, like whether the user's authenticated, and whether the token that they have is correct and everything. Of course, you want to know whether you're authenticated so you can show the right UI for the user, but the backend can tell you that. And so you pretty much are just using your Remix server as sort of a proxy for your backend, your GraphQL server. So if you just push things down, and then the GraphQL server is the one that sends back the set cookie, or whatever, like here's the token, and then Remix could take that and be like, okay, here's the token, I'll send a set cookie. But in any case,
That's
Remix
what I'm
is,
doing now.
yeah. So I think that unless I'm missing something, it sounds like you could actually just remove all Firebase everything from Remix, from the Remix app, and just have the Firebase stuff be in the GraphQL server. And so then it just proxies down, and then the GraphQL Express server can send back, oh, 403 is not authorized or not authenticated or whatever, and then
Right.
the Remix app can just send that along back to the UI as in the catch boundary or whatever.
Gotcha. Yeah, that definitely makes a lot of sense too. I think I eventually like decided to not do it that way because I was thinking that there could be times where like I was on like an admin page that didn't actually rely on anything from like the GraphQL API. So then I was thinking maybe like performance there, just hitting my remix thing and being like, yeah, there's a session here, we're all good, without pinging like the next thing down could maybe be beneficial. But it does, I guess, add maybe some complexity that I don't necessarily need.
Yeah, like there's a point where you're like, yeah, maybe it's suboptimal, but it's easier to do the right thing and harder to do the wrong thing. To just check it in both places. So like one optimization you could go from that is just have the Express GraphQL server take care of all authentication, and then the Remix server is pretty much taken care of anytime data needs to be accessed. But if there are some pages that access data from somewhere else and you need to authenticate those as well, now those aren't going to be safe. You could, I guess this is, it's important for me to understand, like, you talk about this admin page, does that doesn't talk to the GraphQL server, that like gets data from somewhere else? Is that the case?
No, it gets data exclusively from the GraphQL server. I was saying I could envision a time like within the admin area of the app where just maybe like it doesn't need data from the GraphQL API, perhaps like for like maybe down the road it's getting it from somewhere else, or like it's just an informational page,
Yeah, sure. I would say that the likelihood of that happening. So the likelihood that you would in some future date create another way to access private data and not lock that down is pretty unlikely. Like you create anything else, you're probably going to lock it down. And the possibility of some just like informational page, how bad is it really if people see that, So I think you're probably safe to just lock down as close to where the data is as possible. And then if people can happen to maybe see the UI or something, like there's no data in there, so who cares? They're just like looking at nothing. So I think you're probably safe. But yeah, if you wanted to, it's just suboptimal to verify in the Remix app if you're already locking down the further downstream thing. I think what you're building is a backend for your front end, and that's a perfectly reasonable architecture. And I would embrace that by not bothering with double authentication stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, that answers my question. I can just do away with the remix session entirely and just
probably like if your Express server sends back set cookie headers and then it checks cookie headers, then your backend for your front end just make sure that you're forwarding on those headers, and you should be good.
By forwarding, you mean like the cookie or the request that I get in my remix backend has that cookie, and then I just have to make sure that cookie gets passed along to my check to like the final.
Yeah, and it could be that your Express app doesn't use cookies and it's using JOTs and the authorization header and stuff like that, and that's also fine. The job of the Remix proxy is to take it from the cookie session stuff that the browser is using and move that over to whatever authorization or authentication thing you have for your Express backend. And then when the responses come, you take what that is sending and put it into a set cookie and send it back to the client. So yeah, there's like just a little bit of gymnastics there. That's not a lot of work.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Appreciate it.
Yeah, sure thing. Cool. Anybody else here in the Zoom have a question before I go to Discord?
Hi, Kate.
Hey there, Mike.
Aye, I put my question in Discord actually.
Okay. Is this one yours or?
Just above.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay, so you want to have a component that appears on every route. So add it to the root JSX, as I want the component to appear at the root index of my site and on each route below that. Okay, yep. So it's the search form, I presume.
Yeah.
Don't want to run a search form on, the login. Yeah, this is great. Great question. I actually have an example of what we call layout routes. So let me demonstrate that for you really quick. I don't know if I've got other servers running, but we should be good. Yeah, I guess I have 2 Remix apps running right now. And I think, man, okay, let me see what the username and password is for this in my seed data. Yeah, this is Rachel. Here we go. Okay, so, and we'll go to the sales page and invoices. Boom. This might be a little familiar. That's what we use on the homepage of Remix. So you'll notice we've got this left nav that appears for all of these routes. But on the login page, that left nav doesn't appear, right? That's basically what you're trying to do. Yeah. So the way that we accomplish this is in our routes, we have this, or actually here, we've got our root TSX. So this is similar. This is where you were thinking putting the search thing. The root is actually very minimal. And for most apps, I think the root should typically be pretty minimal. My app, the root is not. And that's because we didn't have layout routes when I started. Okay. So yeah, normally your root, not always, but lots of the time your root should be minimal. And then in your routes, we've got the login. So that's pretty straightforward, right? Like this is the thing that's pretty basic. And so it's just going to be like your typical thing. But then we have this _ app TSX. And this _ signifies to Remix that I want this UI to be present, but I don't want this to appear in the URL. So app is what we call a layout route, and it's responsible for our left nav. Here's our logo, those nav items, and then our outlet, and then everything under the _ app directory will go inside of that outlet.
Right, that makes sense. Good. Yeah.
So, and I'll get you a link to the Remix docs about this too, so you can reference that, and I'll put a link to that repo as well.
I just wasn't sure what that was called, that type of layout.
Yeah. So it's pathless layout routes, and this is the Fake Books Remix app. And you can reference that. Yeah, cool. Does that answer your question? Do you have any other?
Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah.
Okay, sweet.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for coming. Mohammed, did you have a question?
Hello.
Dylan. Hi.
Can you hear me? Is
Yep.
Fine. Okay. Can I share a screen? Is this okay or?
Yeah. Let me stop sharing mine.
Okay. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yep.
So I'm building. I'm rewriting my new website, and I'm using Remix, but I have a couple of decision questions for you. The first is, where should I deploy? I don't want to deploy in Fly, but the Cloudflare workers, I think, has problem with MDX bundler, and it's kind of hard to really use their runtime. Also, I have a problem with Vercel, and after that, I'm gonna ask you. And it's similar to your website. I've helped a bit of from your code, and I have a couple of problems. First was, where should I deploy?
Yeah, so I've got some thoughts on this. If you want build your site the way that I do it, you need a long running server. You can't do a serverless architecture with the way that I do my site. There are benefits to serverless architecture. I know a lot of people like Vercel and Netlify and even AWS Lambda and Cloudflare. But yeah, if you want to do it the way I did it, you can't do that.
I don't want to track any, I don't want any database and tracking for anything, but just raw content, MDX bundling, and
Mhm.
that's why I'm using Vercel or Cloudflare Worker or Dino. But Dino and Cloudflare Workers, I tried them, but it doesn't really work
Yeah,
properly with
yeah.
MDX bundler. I don't know why.
The reason is MDX bundler uses ESBuild, and those two runtimes don't support running ESBuild at runtime.
Uh-huh.
So if
So
you
the only option is Vercel.
well, Vercel, the problem there is that well, I suppose you could do HTTP caching, but Vercel I don't think supports scale-out revalidate.
Yeah, that's my next question, because
Yeah. I have other
I
thoughts on this though. So before you get too far, I have other suggestions. So
do you want to know my current work? I
yeah,
use
go.
KV. I use KV. This is
Uh-huh.
really stupid. I use KV as a key value database, but the round trip, it might be bad. I'm using instead of HTTP caching, instead of H caching of Vercel, I'm using the KV as key value pair for caching the MDX content instead
Mhm.
of. But it's not really makes me satisfied, because I like creating the page and H caching, but it's not working. And if I show you, the Vercel doesn't respect my caching strategy. I don't know why.
Yeah, so the caching header that you have in there, it does have the, oh my goodness, really? Wow.
Yeah,
So that's a
and
surprise.
even I checked them. Yeah, I
Yeah,
checked it, that say all of static contents are cached by us, and you cannot set in their docs.
what a racket. So one thing to keep in mind is that the cache headers that you have specified only apply to browsers and not to CDNs. So if you want a shared cache header, then you need an S max age, which is an
Yeah.
S dash max age with no
Yeah, I
dash.
know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You'll get rid of the dash between the max and age. Yeah. And no, sorry. It's S dash and then max age is one word. Yeah. So that should make it so that the CDN will cache it for you. But I'm not sure I can guarantee that will work on Vercel. Here, just give me 1 second. Somebody's knocking on my door.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, sorry about that. So regardless, I don't think that I don't recommend doing things this way. In a serverless architecture, if your server doesn't respond in like less than 50 milliseconds, then you're in trouble. So even like you may be able to reduce the number of times your server has to respond, but you'll never be able to reduce it to less than 50 milliseconds for when it does need to update the cache. So here's an alternative. You can use a GitHub action to run all the MDX stuff and have it populate either a database, or you said you didn't want a database, a key value store that you have on Cloudflare. And so what you would do is you'd have an endpoint on your Remix app that is like, populate KV or something. And then your GitHub action would hit that, and you'd have like a special secret token or something so that nobody can just do this for you, that your GitHub action would know and your server would share. But yeah, so it hit the GitHub action would run through all of the generate markdown or compile markdown stuff, and then send all of the stuff to your app, which would stick it into KV. And then you don't have to, and then you could do, it doesn't have to be KV. It could be some other storage mechanism wherever you end up deploying your app. But yeah, KV is a good example. And so, yeah, then your app is always just pulling it from KV, and it never has to In fact, like the app code wouldn't even have anything to do with GitHub. Like you wouldn't have any GitHub stuff in your app code. That would only be in your GitHub action.
But the
And
GitHub action should be, sorry.
I was just going to say, I know people who have done this, and I think Michael Carter does this, actually, Killiman. He's, yeah, so.
But the GitHub action is a cron job and running in the background.
No, so what I would do is I would just have it run whenever I made a change to my content. So you've got that content directory. You could also do this in a separate repo, either way. But anytime you make a change to your content, the GitHub action runs. And you could, since your content and your app are in the same repo, like mine, you could look at my GitHub action that determines deployability, and only deploy if it wasn't just a content change. And in either case, my app GitHub action determines if any content changed, and if it did, then it tells my app that content changed. In your case, it would actually like generate the new content and stuff.
Yep. And I had one more problem with this architecture. It was I cannot read the content of an MDX file in serverless for some reason. I don't know why, and that's why I'm using. That's why I read your code and you're pulling it from the GitHub. And the problem is how can I test it in when I'm writing the thing, because it has some JSX, for example. My plan is to build content and alongside it put some, for example, actual JSX code. But how can I test it in development, because I'm pulling it from the GitHub remote? Should I create a branch or
no, that would be a terrible DX. Yeah.
Exactly.
So what I do is I use MSW to intercept the request to GitHub, and during development, and I reroute them to my file system. So if you look at my mocks directory, you'll see the magic there. It's actually really cool.
That's a smart.
Yeah.
And you're creating, instead of that URL, you're creating new URL from your file system. Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
That's actually smart.
Yeah, and it's actually another thing that I do is when I save a file in the content directory, I have a watcher that's running alongside my dev script that will trigger a reload of my app.
Wow.
So that like I just it feels like a live reload thing, but I'm doing all of this work because I don't like the way we did this in the past, which was build it as part of your app, like it's source code, which means that you have to run a rebuild every time you change any content, which could take, for me, it took 16 minutes to redeploy when everything was cached.
All of the content.
Yeah, it was just ridiculous. So I didn't like that anymore. So now I'm kind of going against the grain of what people have been doing for a long time. And I have to build some stuff myself, but I have a pretty good DX for creating content now.
Yeah, that's perfect. Sorry, the last one is when you're creating, when you're seeding the MDX bundler, the files, is it just relative to this folder, or I can import from components? But
good question.
For current architecture of I think you just import it from your relative to this content, and mine is the same. It's not going to work when I'm importing from the component, but in other MDX bundlers for Next.js remote bundler, or I think you can import anything from everywhere.
Yeah, and that's because the way they work, I can't remember. Theirs is not as good for various reasons. I can't remember what they were. But let me show you how I manage what you're trying to do. I'm going to take over and share my screen. Because it'll be a lot easier to show you this. That is not the one I wanted to show you. There we go. Oh, here it is. Okay, so, and this thing is in my way. Sorry, you can't see it, but I can. It's really bothering me. There we go. Okay, so we have
the regex part.
So I've got this, or let me show you an example of one of these. Yeah, how I built a modern web app. And themed. Here we go. So I've got this themed component, but I'm not importing it anywhere. It's just, I'm just using it. So where is this thing coming from? So first of all, I should mention that, yes, I do have the ability to reference and import things that are relative to this directory or like within this directory. And the way that I do that, and you know this, but for everybody else, when you hit a particular blog post, it's going to go to GitHub and it sees, oh, this is a folder. So I'm going to download all the contents of that folder, even like nested forever. So everything from there on down. And so that's why I have access to the components that are inside of it. But for things that I'm like, well, I have generic components that are used in lots of different blog posts, like this themed thing. What this does is it allows me to have a dark mode and a light mode image, so that when you switch between dark mode and light mode, this image is going to be a different one, which is pretty cool. But I use this in a couple blog posts. I don't want to copy paste it for every single one. So where does this come from? It comes from this, here, let's find it. This MDX components, which I have as part of this get MDX component function. That's a custom function that just wraps the MDX bundler get MDX component. And then I return my own component, the KCD MDX component that specifies the components that I want available to what is going to be compiled. And so included in that is themed, also a themed blog image, and subscribe form. Also this anchor or link thing that allows me to switch between an anchor tag to like a separate domain or a link relative to my own thing. So yeah, so that's how that works. I just wrap the get MDX component and return a component that has the MDX components that I want accessible to all my posts.
You mean every page has access to these bundled with these components?
Yeah, so these,
and if they need
these
them,
components won't be bundled with each page. They are part of the regular bundle, but they will be accessible to all of those. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Great architecture of your website.
Yeah, thank you. It's a lot of work. Like I think there's a lot of room for people to build abstractions around lots of this stuff. But like the end benefit is that like it's way faster to deploy a typo fix, and you know, the publish button actually means something. You could also just use a CMS, and Remix integrates with CMSs, and so you're basically building your own CMS is what you're doing. So
no, I
like
it. I
it.
really like it. Yeah, I like it too. Thank you.
Yeah, sure thing. Okay, great. Anybody else in the Zoom before I head off to Discord? Okay, sweet. Then we'll just go right here. Cicada. Inside the sidebar, there's a button that opens a modal. The problem is mobile version. Once the button is clicked, sidebar is closed and there's no modal out of sidebar. When I toggle sidebar again, there's a sidebar. Yeah, I don't think that I have a good way to answer this question. So yeah, you're gonna need to provide more details. Sorry. Can you provide? Okay. Parsa, everyone. Making a dev tool, it's a CLI, and I want devs to be able to extend the functionality of the tool. The objective is to let them have their own custom code that basically returns an object of a certain format. They might call an API, read a file, etc. I'm hoping to give them as much freedom as possible as long as they return the right format. Okay. Problem is, I'm not sure what is the best way for that. My CLI will be a package they install globally, but the custom solution will be something within the scope of a single project. My first intuition was to have them create a JS file in the project, then run the code using a sandbox solution while I give them access to an env, an HTTP client, etc. But that doesn't sound like a good idea. It runs the code outside the context of their project, so they won't have access to packages, linters, and TypeScript, etc. Do you have a better solution for making a CLI extensible? So I don't understand why you have to run outside here. And let me say, answering this now. I don't understand the constraint that says you have to run outside of the context of their projects. It seems to me like you should be able to run it within that, just set the current working directory. I'm guessing you're spawning a separate process, and you can set the current working directory. If you want, it looks like you have a sandboxing solution, so you want to give them access to all this stuff, but you could give them access to that without having to run it within your own context of your own thing. So the easiest way would be to make global variables. And so you would first, so you would run node -- require your thing with globals, thing that sets up globals, and then their thing. Or they could export a function that you call, and you can provide it all of the stuff that they need. So that's another alternative. This actually sounds a lot like ScriptKit. So maybe you could learn from, or even just use this tool, which I think is phenomenal. And that's how I open up my, like, here, I can create a new Zoom meeting right now, or I can look up people in ConvertKit, upload a picture to Cloudinary, create a new blog post, fix my screen. Sometimes the resolutions get wrong. And open a project. Like, you see me use this all the time in my streams, because it's amazing. So maybe you just use that. And it is also a CLI, not just a UI, so you can use it as a CLI. Yeah, if you don't want to use that, or like that's outside of your use case, I'm pretty sure you should be able to provide them the stuff that you want to provide them, and still allow them to run in the context of their own project, so they have access to everything that they want. So one other tip, since you mentioned running TypeScript, you could also use TSX, which so instead of running, so like, I'm guessing you're going to be like spawn node, and then here's the args, or like path to their script. So instead of doing that, what you would do is npx and then tsx, and then -- require, whoops, your globals thing, or probably the full path to the globals thing, and then the path to their script. And then you could also provide env, which would be a combination of process env and your env. And then you'd also provide a CWD that is the like process CWD. Well, that would be the default. But if you wanted to specify a different CWD, then that's how you do that. So I guess I'll paste that in pseudo code. Some of that might be wrong. But anyway, hopefully that's helpful. Good luck. Part of me is thinking that this require thing may not work. You would definitely want to need to do that. I think the require thing might not work with TSX, but there's other ways. Like, you can use ESBuild register. But try TSX first, because it seems to work better for me. So anyway, good luck. Yeah, always fun to make those kinds of tools. But cool is very cool. How one should handle SEO in React-based apps when frameworks like Next and Remix run are not on the table. So I have found solution online that sounds like, but they call sounds like shady. I would love to hear your opinion. Okay, so if you're not server rendering, then you're in big trouble on an SEO standpoint. Or at least static site generating, then yeah, you're going to have a hard time with SEO. So yeah, it's very difficult for me to answer this question because I don't know what tools you're using, but the principles of SEO are the same regardless of what tools you're using. You've got meta tags, canonical links, proper like good accessibility, proper use of headings and stuff. So like it's not going to be different depending on which framework you're using. It's not like using a framework automatically makes you more SEO friendly or anything. But yeah, like you if you can't server render, and it's all client side rendered or something and not even server generated, then you're going to be in trouble. So yeah, good luck. Just answered that one. Okay, HT. Deploy my remix to site to fly. I need to set the soft limit, hard limit value for auto scaling. How do you decide? Yeah, I have no idea. Yeah, no idea. I asked community.fly.io. And no, I do not load test my site. Sorry, not very helpful there. Lydia, hi Lydia. Soft question. When you're doing code reviews for teammates PRs, do you have suggestions for not sounding nitpicky? Ooh, Lydia, this would be, this is a great question. Oh, actually, I already said that. Well, I suppose if she saw that before, she's not going to ask it now. So yeah, answering this now. Yeah, so when doing code reviews for teammates PR, not sounding nitpicky, or if something was bordering an opinion, but your opinion is backed by reason, would you just let it slide? As I've gotten older, I've cared less about things, some things, and more about others, I guess. But yeah. So nitpicky things. When I was at PayPal, we established a pretty good culture of like, this is just a nitpick, which is basically like, I would do it a different way, just an idea for you, do what you will with it. And so we would say like small nit and then whatever we wanted to say. And that was pretty good. And we never really got into like back and forth arguments on small nits. Like we just ignore it if you didn't agree. And it was fine. Yeah, if it's if you do think that it's important, see if you can automate the opinion there. Like make sure everybody's on board, but see if you can automate the opinion so that through like a linting plugin or something, so that you don't have to be the one nitpicking. That seems to help sometimes. And then yeah, like if you can justify your opinion in a way that says, hey, listen, like this is going to be harmful to what we're trying to accomplish here at this company, then yeah, I wouldn't let it slide if I thought it would be harmful. And I actually do have a blog post that's sort of about that. That is engineering, business and engineering alignment, that I will link to you as well. So I hope that's helpful. Good luck, Lydia. Okay, Fern, how do you deal with ACT warnings coming from third-party libraries scheduling state updates, especially if those updates are not updating UI? I don't have specific code snippet, but I've had this problem with React forms. What do you think about disabling ACT warnings in tests? Well, so for one, I'll just answer that really quick. ACT warnings only show up in tests. And so if you're disabling them in tests, you're just disabling them altogether. Personally, I don't see much value in ACT warning when using RTL, and I find it causing a lot of trouble. You're missing it because there is a lot of value, whether you're using RTL or not. The reason you might think, oh, well, I'm using RTL, so I don't need to, ACT isn't providing value, is because RTL automatically uses ACT. So it protects you against some things, but it's not going to protect you against everything, especially in a large project with a lot of developers. Developers try to hide the warning in different ways, using useless wait for, using ACT, mock return value, promise noop, hence bloating the complexity of the tests and making them inconsistent. The only value I see from ACT warning is that there may be a hint you have better code coverage, but I don't think that that's the right tool for that. So yeah, here, just answering this now. So as far as the original question, ACT warnings come from third-party libraries. So like, first of all, you may have seen this already, but in case you have not, I have a blog post about this. And in my blog post, I probably word it better than I could just make it up right here. So let me see if I can find, there's got to be like a call out here somewhere that explains what ACT is doing. Oh man. Okay, great. Okay. Here it is. So the act warning from React is there to tell us that something happened to our component when we weren't expecting anything to happen. So this is very important because if you aren't accounting for all of the things that your code is doing when a particular action is taken, then your test cannot tell you that you are that your component is working properly. And the example that I give in here is a good one. So you should take a look at the example. But the act warning is important, and you do not want to disable it. You do not want to ignore it. It is important that you make sure you cover it, even when it's coming from third-party libraries. So the tricky thing is that when it is coming from third-party libraries and the state update doesn't impact the UI, then yeah, it can be pretty annoying. I think I'd need a specific snippet to be able to give specific advice of what to do, but normally there is a way to either determine or figure out what is happening, like make sure that some function is getting called properly or something, or even the useless wait for actually is better than just ignoring it altogether. So because at least you make sure that your component runs to completion before the test is finished. And so if you don't wait for that, then there could be some sort of error that you never find out because Jest says, oh, the test is done, let me boot this out. So yeah, don't ignore it. Check out this blog post. And if you have a specific example, then I'm more than happy to take a look. Okay, great. Wagner, is it possible to see the stacks trace in prod and see which components had errors? I use Sentry and it's useless to see bug reports since I can't see stack trace. It's all minified in random letters. Yes. So when you build your site, your bundle, for your client-side bundle, I 100% recommend, highly recommend that you enable stack traces or that you enable site source maps. So a lot of people just, I don't know why, but a lot of people say no source maps, don't turn on source maps in production. That doesn't make any sense to me because if there's something that actually is something you're shipping to production you don't want your users to see, sorry, you're already sending it to them. They can, like JavaScript is, like it may be in like mini variables and stuff, but people can't see what that code looks like. So I strongly advise the use of source maps. So yeah, give that a look.
So does it take it more space on the network source maps?
Yeah, that's a great question. It does not, because the source maps aren't downloaded until the DevTools are opened. And so,
nice.
yeah, if your users are using DevTools, then yes. But yeah, thank you for the follow-up, Mohammed.
Yeah.
All right, Ramsey, another huge fan of using AI like Copilot to help speed up your code. What do you think about using stuff like the new ChatGPT for coding as well? I haven't actually used ChatGPT yet, but I've seen a lot of people on Twitter using it and it looks amazing. 100% like think that's cool. I can see that it would make you more productive, but stay away from using AI because, but I stay away from using AI because I want to deeply understand all the code I'm writing, especially since I'm early in my career and I feel like gaining a deeper understanding of code is more valuable to me than high speed at this point. Any thoughts on the trade-offs? So Ramsey, this is great insight, great thought. I don't think that you need to worry so much about this because what would you do if you didn't have the code? You'd probably go searching for it and try to find it. So the AI is helping you skip the whole searching part. There are problems and a lot of times we learn really well by falling into a hole and then figuring out our way to get out of it. And that's great sometimes, but other times the hole that we've fallen into is just a distraction from what our actual true end goal of learning actually is. And so I am more than happy to let the AI help me avoid the holes that I'm not interested in. And then I can intentionally dive into stuff that I'm actually interested in learning. So I think it's really good that you're worried about this, but I don't think you need to worry about that. I think that AI assisted coding is already here, and it's amazing. It can really help you learn. And it's not always perfect. So there will be sometimes there will be little bumps in the road as you use what the AI said and then find out that it's wrong or it's suboptimal or something. But I think that that's okay, and it will get better. But yeah, I would totally use AI as a learning mechanism as well. So good luck with that. Okay, great. Exomu. Saw you streaming experiments with LightFS recently. Yeah, lots of LightFS. Is LightFS production ready? If not, what's holding it back? Okay, so I'm using it in production. And if you look at this, all of my blog posts and like everything, like your user data, the number of users who have read the blog post, all of that stuff, that's all coming from LightFS proxied SQLite database. The reason that I'm using LightFS is because I want distributed SQLite, and that's the only way to get distributed SQLite is by using something like LightFS. And I was using distributed Postgres before, but running into some infrastructure related issues with that, and I didn't want to deal with. So I wanted something simpler like SQLite, but I didn't want to lose the distributed nature of it. The problem is that in answer to your other question, is LightFS production ready? I don't know if I would like bet the farm on it right now. It's still very much beta software, and I have had a lot of challenges with it myself. Luckily, I am more than happy to, I don't know, hurt myself, I guess, in this way to suffer. Because yeah, my site has gone, like a lot of people probably have observed my site go down for no longer than like 10 minutes at a time, most of the time, due to LightFS related issues. So yeah, I'm not sure I would say it's quite production ready. I'm not in multiple regions yet because it's got issues with multi-region, at least with the amount of traffic I get. This LightFS demo that I threw up, this is running on LightFS, and it actually does run in 2 regions. So if I refresh this with that special header, if we go down here to the request headers, fly prefer region MAA, then we see the fly region was, oh, that's right. I deleted the MAA region. Well, it had multiple regions before. I deleted it to test something out. But yeah, so it worked. It had multiple regions. Everything was fine there. Yeah, it's not working for my site yet. Maybe something related to how much traffic I get or something. So the team is still actively working on it. I'm talking with them fairly regularly and testing things out as we go. So this is actually one of the reasons why, if you look at my transparency page, my mission, it's my transparency page. I have one section in here on free stuff that I get. Fly.io it gives me free credits for running, and it's because I do stuff like this, like subject myself to a ton of pain by testing out all of their stuff early. So full transparency, Fly does give me credit. They don't pay me anything, but they do give me credits to run my site for free on their platform. But only because I think I was the biggest and first Node app on their platform using their Postgres cluster and stuff. Certainly the first Remix app on their platform. So yeah, that's the reason for them giving me free access to their platform, just because I subject myself to all of this pain. But it's totally worth it because it's super, super cool. I love their platform. And yeah, and LightFS is phenomenal. Phenomenal promises. And I do expect that it will be production ready soon. As far as what's holding it back, I don't understand it enough to be specific, like here are the things that it needs. But it just seems that every time I try to take advantage of the promises, like to deploy to multiple regions or make any sort of significant change to my database, it has some sort of problem. So still waiting on those sorts of kinks to be ironed out, but eventually they will be, and LightFS will be amazing. So there you go. Okay, Matt, and actually,
Yeah.
sorry, last point on this really interesting thing. Yesterday, I tried to deploy to a second region on my stream, and I had Ben on, who is the creator of LightFS. And so that might be an interesting thing to watch because things did not work out. And so, yeah, kind of fun to watch that.
Hello, Kent. Sorry for interrupting you. So I would like to ask you about Nextout. If you used it, it's some package for authentication Next.js. And I'm trying to use it with Redux Toolkit. How would you go about that? So it looks like there should be a token in storage, and I'm trying to find a way to get the token into storage.
Yeah, so I've got some bad news. You're talking about two libraries that I've not used. So I did
used both of them.
Oh, great. Then you two can
Yeah.
actually a good place for you to chat would be Yuri, if you could, I don't know if I said your name right. Hopefully I did. But if you want to post something in here, then Mohammed can you two can go back and forth, and other people could join in and provide any feedback there. But yeah, I used Redux years ago, before Redux Toolkit was a thing, and I've never used Nextauth. So sorry, I can't be too much help.
Okay, thank you. I will drop my message into the chat. Yeah, Mohammed,
Awesome.
please. Yeah.
Cool.
Thank you,
Thanks,
guys.
Mohammed. Yeah, sure thing. All right, Matt. Hi. I'm trying to unit test my actions. I'm assuming remix actions with vtest and HappyDOM, but it seems HappyDOM doesn't support form data yet. Yes, I found that out recently as well on one of my streams. Ryan Florence pinged me, and I was like, "Hey, I'm on stream. Do you want to just chat right now?" And he said, "Sure." And so you can actually watch us debug this exact problem with form data. I then tried, this was like 2 or 3 days ago. I tried switching to JSDOM. That doesn't seem to support requests. Yeah, actually, Ryan just tweeted yesterday that one, well, let's find it. It's just because it is kind of funny. Ryan Florence, DOM, let's see. There it is right there. One testing DOM implementation doesn't have form data. The other doesn't have request response headers. Oh, what a sad world we live in. Any recommendations how to get test coverage for those actions that use form data? So this is Paul made a suggestion and of a way to kind of, I think, make it work with vtest and JSDOM. And yeah, seems like that was working. Another idea that you might consider is one thing that I actually thought about was Playwright component testing or Cypress component testing, so you can run your tests in a real browser, or potentially even use vtest with a real browser like Playwright. I think that's possible. So those are some options that I would be looking at right now. I'm not actively working on testing Remix components that use Remix. But eventually I will be, and I know that Ryan is actively working on it now. So Remix will have a official happy path for testing at that level eventually. One thing to keep in mind is that if you're just testing your actions, you do not need HappyDOM. But here is one thing that you might want to know. In Rocket Rental, I do have tests set up. Oh, nope, that is not Rocket Rental. Come on, where's Rocket? Here it is, other screen. And I'll paste a link to this in the Discord here in just a moment. But I have this global setup here where I say, nope, that's not it. I think, yeah, setup testing env. Yeah, so this is for my vtest, and I do this install globals. And so if you disable HappyDOM in my, here, let's keep that up, vtest config. So, oh no, I have HappyDOM. Yeah, this seems to work. And then you have your setup files, setup test env that installs the globals from Remix Run Node. And then I do stuff because my vtest stuff is just server side code. I'm not doing any client side stuff. So I actually probably could get rid of Happy DOM. I feel like maybe I am doing some UI stuff with vtest. Anyway, this setup is working for me right now. So I will give you a link to this. And you can take a look at it and see if that's going to work for you. So there's that. Okay, Slil, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. Please correct me. Hey, Kent, what are your opinions, thoughts on writing all of your tests with one framework like Cypress? So the reason I wouldn't do that is because Cypress does not run the unit and integration tests as quickly as a framework like Jest does. It also doesn't have the mocking capabilities that you would need for lower level tests for like a lot of use cases, like module level mocking capabilities. So yeah, the reason I don't do everything with just Cypress is and actually on top of that, some of my stuff is just server-side stuff too. And so that's not going to work in Cypress. But if we're just talking UI, the reason I don't run all of my UI tests in Cypress is because it doesn't run as fast. It doesn't have the mocking capabilities. It doesn't have the interactive watch mode. It doesn't have the ability to run only tests that are impacted by specific changes. So your Git hooks and stuff you probably wouldn't want to do. So yeah, for various reasons, Cypress doesn't have what Jest and now vtest have. So that's why. Okay, Yuri, what's up? Question about next auth. Okay. Oh, so you're Yuri with a J on Zoom and Yuri with a Y on Discord. Is that I'm guessing that's the same one, right?
Yes,
yeah.
right.
Okay.
That's me.
Okay, great. And there's Mohammed. Okay, great. Looks like we reached the end. Thanks, everybody. This is fun. And as far as plans, future plans, where's my schedule? So next week, I am planning on doing office hours. Got lots of live streams going on next week as well. So I am actually having surgery on the 7th to get this metal plate out of my collarbone, off my collarbone from the accident I had earlier this year. So I'm not sure what the rest of that week is going to look like. If it's anything like last time when I got the collarbone injury and the surgery for that, I was back up and working like pretty quick because I can't just sit around doing nothing. So I should be able to do office hours next week, but if I'm not, that might be why. And yeah, thank you. Okay, thanks everybody.
Good luck.
Well, and actually, oh yeah, also, I need to change my schedule on the live stream today. I might be live streaming this afternoon, but probably not because it is my son's birthday. And I think that we're going to be doing stuff this afternoon. So probably next live stream will be on Monday. So see ya.
Okay. Okay.